Natasha Denona has officially revealed her new palette. It's called the Yucca palette, and it kind of makes me excited, not because of the color story, but because of the textures. She used to have this very sparkly formula that she's been stepping away from, but it seems like she's going back to it. Apparently, this is going to be a midi palette, and this makes me more excited because she doesn't have those formulas in there. I removed the background to see the colors better, and the way this is looking, it's like gold and sapphire had a baby, with a few shades from green brown and triochrome sprinkled in there. Now looking at the swatches, I can see some pops of warm colors like orangey-like shades, then pops of green, but the overall theme is going to be yellow, if you ask me. Now let's talk about this, which is probably the most telling picture out of all. This was uploaded by a normal user, they posted it to Instagram, and this looks like they actually own the palette. I don't think I can trust the colors in here because of the way it all looks, but what I can trust is the overall depth of the palette and the textures. Because you cannot do what Natasha Denona is doing on their site with a normal picture like this. I don't know why the palette has these big digs on it, but I trust it a lot more than Natasha's picture. You can see the shadow plantasia is actually the texture that they're saying in their page. It reminds me of the older formulas actually in the gold, like brass and cava. Those two were very sparkly. So this is great for those who don't have that palette. Elysian looks like a foil metallic. Calathea looks like a cream to powder. I could bet it's a cream to powder just because of those little lines in there that you see and the little hard pen already developing. You can see the difference here. The yellow, it's going to be a cream to powder too. All of these seem to me like they're her regular matte formula. What I find very interesting is that all of the mattes look very light in comparison to her swatches. I wonder if they're trying to make it look like a deeper palette than it is, or if this photo just came out looking a little washed out. And also, the way all these shades are shattered could affect the way the texture looks a little, not the mattes but the shimmers. So yeah, we won't be able to know until reviewers start getting their palettes. Now the magic about Natasha Denona's palettes are that they're magnetic, so you can mix and match them, you can play with them to create new color stories. In my case, I like to do a little bit of duping and creating. It's great to have this option because I've taken some of these palettes traveling and their packaging is so sturdy, I don't have to worry about them breaking or anything. And so I'm going to be doing this process but for duping this specific palette. I'll be using her larger palettes to dupe this out. Starting with Plantasia, I have 4 possible options. Cava from the gold palette, which is quite sparkly. Magnolia from the lila palette, which is very smooth. This is Sienna from green brown, which is just as smooth but with more dimension. And Alchemist from the gold palette, which is again smooth. All of these are so pretty, but I'm going with Cava just because of its texture. I think it will fit better. Comparing it here, I can tell that Plantasia is going to have a deeper base, but you know, I'm going to use this one for now. Calathea looks like the deepest shade. It's that cream to powder formula that's very deep, and I only have Rhino from Safari that's even close, so this is the one I'm gonna use. I know it's gonna be very different formula-wise and color-wise, but it's what I have, and I think it's gonna look nice. Next is Komorebi, and I have 2 options for this one. It's that gold that looks very chunky and reflective, so I picked this too. This is Brass from the gold palette, and texture-wise it looks spot on. The other option is Spectrum from the Star palette. Both are very reflective and quite beautiful, but I like the quality that Brass has where it's that deep base but a light sparkle, so I'm going to choose that one. This is the formula that I think they're going to use on this palette because you can see it looks exactly like the ones in the picture. It's so spot on. I've got 2 options for Acacia. First is Scrap from the Triochrome palette, and second is Savannah from the Safari palette. Maybe it's because it's older, but Savannah looks dry, so I'm going with Scrap. Acacia looks way warmer, at least with this setup, but Scrap is the closest that I have to this color, so that's what I'm going with. Next is Camu Camu, which looks like a very pastel-y yet vivid yellow, so I'm going with Eon from the Triochrome palette. I think this one is going to fit the best. Natasha doesn't have that many yellows, but I have to admit this one does look pretty close, at least in here. Next is gonna be Tipu, and I chose Dijon from the gold palette. It's the only shade that has that yellowy quality in here, but yet deep. And seeing it here, I can tell that it's going to be more suitable for Bali, but I'm going to stick with it because I have nothing else that's even close to Tipu. When I saw Illusion, I knew exactly the shade that I wanted for it. This is Industrial from the Green Brown palette. It's a very foily shade. It looks like metal on the hand. It's so dimensional, I just had to include it. This one looks pretty cool toned compared to the one in the picture, but as I said, I'm not sure if this picture is to be trusted, especially with my setup. Next it's gonna be Bali, and I have two options. Teak, which can be found in the gold palette, and Aria, also in the gold palette. Teak looks darker and warmer, so I'm going with Teak, because it's a very warm leaning palette, and even then it's not gonna be as accurate. Next it's gonna be Citrine. Again, Natasha doesn't have that many yellows, so I'm going with the one bird from Triochrome. And I think this is going to be a very good bet because it has a very similar tone, at least in my setup. Next is Ray, and I have two options. First is Aura from the gold palette, and next is Cosmo from the star palette. This is where I'm going to put my own little thing into this palette because I much rather have something like Oro in this palette, even though this gold looks a lot more yellow. These three golds look so close anyway, so I'm going to choose something different. I've got two options for flags, Log in the gold palette and Earth in the start palette. They're just the deepest browns that I could find, and I'm going with Log because it looks a bit cooler tone, and this one did make me think that it could be a burgundy in some swatches. I've got three options for Fuchsia: Plutonium from Triochrome, Tamarind from Safari, and Firework from Triochrome. Tamarind seems too muted, and Firework looks too vivid, so I'm going with Plutonium because it's the middle of those. On this picture, it looks like it could be Ixia, but I'm sticking with this. Next is Maquia, and I've got three options. Green from Circo Loco, which is a light gold, Antique Olive from Gold Brown, which is a great way to describe this color, and Lime Chrome from Gold. This is a very pretty duochrome with a very light base, but I think Antique Olive is going to be better because of its deeper base. The texture in this one is going to be very different, but I think it works in color. Next, it's gonna be Ixia, and I've got three options. Pitch Puff from Tropic, Tribe from Safari, and Desert Date from Safari as well. For this one, I'm going with Desert Date just because it has a warmer quality than the others. And even then, it looks a bit peachy in here. And last, it's gonna be Willow, which is that deep green, and Natasha Denona hasn't done deep greens in her bigger palettes. So I'm going with Python from the gold palette, which is more of a teal green. I think this color is going to be closer to Calathea, but I'm going to use it here because I have nothing like a green. And now time to put the palette together. I don't know if you've noticed, but this color story of green with chartreusey yellows is going to be kind of a trend. Nomad and Odensai also have color stories similar to this. It has also been trendy in the past. Ace Beauté and Colored Rain have done like jungly palettes in the past, and those also went pretty viral. So I can see why this color story keeps coming back and keeps being a hit. It seems like an approachable palette if you like neutrals, and it seems like a very well put together color story for those who like color. I'm not sure if more brands are going to start coming out with their own version of it, because we're just in May and there's already 3 palettes with this color story. And here's all the palettes swatched out together. I think I did a good job, but I'm still going to get the original, because I suspect her formulas are going to be a bit different. I'm super curious about the foily sparkly shades, if it's the same formula as Brass and the older ones that she has stepped away from. It'll be so cool to see them again, because these are pretty old, okay? Also, I am way too invested into the Natasha Denona ecosystem, so I can just quit now. And you know, it's the thing that I have with the depth, that I see them as a bunch of singles rather than just a palette, because I can play with them, I can exchange them, This is a big selling point for me. I rarely buy palettes that aren't magnetic anymore, so if everyone could start doing this, that'd be great, but also please don't do it because I'm going to run out of money. But you know, that's just me. What are your thoughts? Are you gonna get this? Are you gonna dupe it? Are you very uninterested? Let me know and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you for watching and have a great day.